What's up, everyone? Welcome to Level 7. It is time for another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. I'm your host, TJ Zwarich, and the most anticipated movie of the year is here. Deadpool and Wolverine is now in theaters, and to help me break it down, I got my guy back in action, taking time out of his busy day covering San Diego Comic-Con because there's no way he was going to miss a Deadpool and Wolverine reaction and review. Adam Blevins, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It feels so good. Feels like returning home after a long absence, being back here. I hated so much, like we were talking about before we recorded, missing so many episodes of The Acolyte. I think I only got to break that down, twice with you. But you and Damon and all the guests did such a great job talking about that show. But yeah, like you said, there was no way I was going to – San Diego Comic-Con going on right now, very busy covering everything over at Collider, but there was no way that I was going to miss an opportunity to talk about this movie with you, especially because you were right about one specific thing that I cannot wait to go over.
Oh, I'm so proud. It feels so good when a theory comes to fruition. I do want to touch on The Acolyte, one thing really quick that made me happy, because I was – out to Deadpool and Wolverine last night with two of my close friends, Zach and Kennedy. And Zach starts asking me about this new Star Wars show, The Acolyte. He heard it. He says he heard it's amazing. And I said, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And the great part is it's 100 years before anything Star Wars. And so you can watch it without having watched anything else in Star Wars, really. And he goes like, yeah, that's what I heard. That's what people have been telling me. So word of mouth in general public is going pretty well for The Acolyte. Renew it for season 2. We would all love to get another season of The Acolyte, so hopefully that comes to fruition. But we're here to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine today. If you're listening to us on YouTube, make sure you hit the notification bell, subscribe, hit the like button. YouTube has been popping lately. We got a lot of new podcast listeners. Whether you're joining us on the Council of Fire, you found us through the Comic Corner, we thank you for being here because the views have been popping, and we're happy to have all the new listeners. So welcome. Thank you so much. Please hit the subscribe, like button, hit the notification bell, and make sure you're following the Agents of Fandom on socials. At Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. We got a lot of really cool videos popping lately, a lot of shorts, breaking down movies. We had Damon and Fat Thor, speaking of the Comic Corner, live on location in LA for Kevin Feige's Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony. And so they got to see all the stars coming in. Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan reuniting. Brie Larson was there. Catherine Hahn was there promoting the upcoming Agatha All Along series. So it was a lot of really good stuff. Make sure you check that out. But like I said, Deadpool and Wolverine time. What did you think? You had high expectations, right? Deadpool is your favorite Marvel character. What'd you think?
I mean, that's a loaded question. I love this movie so much. Like there's been a lot of, mixed reception. I think generally general audiences are really enjoying it. I believe I looked earlier this morning, I think on Rotten Tomatoes, like critics were up to 80% and audience was 98 this morning with like thousands of reviews, which is, really 98 people out of 100 enjoying this movie is a pretty high. That's about as high for like a Marvel movie or anything in general as I know generally like audience scores for Marvel stuff are much higher than critic scores, especially in the post-Endgame era. But no, it's been interesting too, talking with you about it earlier and seeing other people kind of divide their thoughts into like, as a fan, I think of it like this, but as a critic, I think of it like this, which I've done with many things in the past. But with this movie, because I love Deadpool so much and because I love Wolverine so much and because I love Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman as people, as actors so much, it's just really hard for me to do that because like when I was watching this and I came out of it, like I wasn't like, damn, that was a great time, but holy shit, I wish they had done this and this and this. And like I was talking to, former co-host Garrett about this morning as well. And he was like, similar vein as you, as like I had a really good time, but he was like, holy shit, there was a lot of plot holes. And I'm like, me personally, and I'm sure when you go over some of your qualms and when I, talk to more people about it, Garrett and other people that are maybe not critically as high on it, I'll get to hear some complaints, some criticisms, some qualms that I'll be like, yeah, that's very fair. But like, I was so on cloud nine. I was caught up in so much euphoria watching this for the first time. And I'm sure too, as I get several watches under my belt, I'll notice more things, especially as on my third or fourth watch with a 25% full theater, when I've already seen it several times, I'll probably be able to pick out a few more things than Thursday at 3 o'clock. The first IMAX showings around the world are happening. My theater was 100%, like even the front two rows of an IMAX theater down at the very bottom. People breaking their necks, like Willem Dafoe looking straight up, completely full. And I had the time of my life. I don't remember a time that I had like watching a Marvel movie. I told Garrett yesterday that this gave me the feeling that so many Infinity Saga movies gave me, where like it felt like a true escape. And like No Way Home kind of gave me that too, but it wasn't really until the last hour of the movie. The first hour and a half of the movie, I was like thinking they were going to show up, and they do. But this movie, even when it's just Deadpool, like for the first 30 or 40 minutes, like 30 minutes probably, it's still that escape. It's still that feeling of pure euphoria. Like it's from the very beginning, we get the opening that I know we're going to talk about with like you're probably all wondering how we're going to do this without defiling Logan's legacy. He's like, well, the question is, or the answer is, we're not. Everybody
Fucking
busted out.
hilarious.
And I was like, we're off. Like this movie started 30 seconds ago and everybody's already out. But like, just circling back, it is hard. I'm sure that I will discover criticisms as I go along and listening to you talk about, some complaints and some qualms. I'm sure I'll hear some that I will probably agree with that I just didn't register with me because I was having such a good time. Like I love this movie in terms of just enjoyment MCU rankings. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but I'll say I won't spoil exactly where it's at, but I'll say it's high, very high up there. And I just love this. This lived up for this was everything that as somebody who was very excited for it, it was everything that I wanted it to be.
Couldn't agree more with basically everything you said. Like Spider-Man No Way Home was basically that for me, where it's like, I will enjoy this no matter what. My one qualm with that movie was like, they needed to give us more swinging with the three of them, just like messing around, being crazy, like that last scene when they were doing stuff. It was great. Just give us a little more of them swinging together, doing combo moves, because it's so cool. But with Deadpool and Wolverine, I knew nothing. And that's one of the things that made it so fun, is it was legitimately 2 straight hours of like, this is so much fucking fun. Like, this is just an absolute blast. It was the first 2 Deadpool movies, really funny. This one was so much funnier. Like, this one was absolutely hilarious. Start to finish, almost all the jokes landed for me. It was such a cool, unique experience to be able to get the truthful Timmy blowjob queen of Saskatoon joke in Saskatoon, watching that on opening night. Like, the whole crowd just went nuts hearing that. Like, it was so fun getting to experience that, and the crowd is just going wild throughout the whole movie. It was a lot of fun. Whereas it was kind of the antithesis of Spider-Man No Way Home for me, though, whereas as the movie went on, it was kind of getting more and more excited in Spider-Man No Way Home, because I kind of knew everything, especially at the beginning of that movie, which kind of dampened it for me a little bit. But in this one, in the third act, I was sitting a little bit like, we've gotten so much fun throughout these first 2 acts. Like, what's going to happen here in the third one? What are we getting? And it just felt a little bit anticlimactic for me. It was kind of like singing, like, I knew Cassandra Nova's not going to win. She's not going to destroy it. They made the stakes a little bit too high. She's not going to destroy the entire multiverse. If it was a certain sect of universes, I might think she was going to win, but she's not going to destroy the entire multiverse. And so that got me just thinking again with a little bit with a story of like, just wanted a little bit more at the end to like hammer it home from an MCU grander scale perspective. But that was, I think I just got caught up in a little bit, like Feige talking before this. This is the biggest thing we've done since Endgame, which it was in certain perspectives in terms of who the characters they brought together, things like that. But if I look at as like a MCU event level film, I'm a little bit like, ugh, I wanted more, especially at the end there. If I look at it as a Deadpool and Wolverine movie, that was so fucking fun, and it was the best of the trilogy, and it was like expectations for MCU grander scale that I think had me wanting a little bit more. And then just, I think the story could have been tighter, but the story wasn't as important as just being fun, being a fun comic book movie with these two on the screen together.
So I 100% agree with you. Another thing I was talking about with Garrett yesterday is like when Feige ranked this, you remember he had, I apologies, I can't remember who it was with, but he had that interview where he was talking about like consequential, like in terms of movies that are consequential for the future of the MCU. He was like, Endgame is a 10, Infinity War's a 9.5, and Deadpool's a 9. That was complete bullshit. Like, this is a crazy movie and a lot happens. And like Garrett asked me if that was true. And I was like, no, there's no project that I'm more excited about. There's nothing specific for the future of the universe that I'm more excited. This movie doesn't tease anything crazy coming in the future. Like, I'm like, where were you getting that from, Kevin Feige? Because this is a crazy movie and a lot happens, but I don't think we're going to see a ton of things in the future that we're like, this is happening because of Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, I don't, unless it's going to feel super shoehorned in if that's the case, because they tied everything up in this movie. It's not like we got some like Loki thing or Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness ending where there's an incursion that maybe we're going to, because like, I can totally see Avengers Kang Dynasty or whatever they decide to call it, and Secret Wars, like the ending of Multiverse of Madness coming into play in something because they literally cause an incursion. So like, that to me seems more even though I like this movie more than Multiverse of Madness, in terms of just being consequential, this movie did not feel that like big and impactful, I think is a good word, I should say, for like the future of the MCU. I did not get that vibe from it at all. But I will agree. When you talked about the story a little bit too, there's a couple things I want to say. I will agree with the general qualm everybody has that the story was a little weak. But to me, this movie is less about the actual story itself and the way it's trying to kind of push the characters through this story. Like, I resonated with Deadpool's motivations to save his friends and family because we watched him in those first two movies get to know Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Vanessa and all these characters like Blind Owl. Like, I was like, I believe that he's fucking really down, like really trying to fix this. And like when he first gets to the TVA and Agent Paradox, shout out to my guy Matthew McFadden, who just put on a fucking show in this whole movie. I think there's going to be a lot of people who didn't watch Succession who are like, I got to go watch Succession now to see this guy because he won like 3 Emmys for the show. It's like, he's so fucking good. But I think when he first gets there and Agent Paradox kind of tells him his plan, and he's like, we're not fucking sick. No, like they're all going to die. Like, and it's like, that's generally the kind of thing that Wade would be like, oh, wow. Sucks for them. All right, what are we doing next? But it's like, no, like he really cares about these people. He does not want something bad to happen to them. And the same, I'll pass it right to you after this. The same with Wolverine, where it's like, I liked getting to, I wish we could have gotten a little more backstory about his version of the X-Men. That would have been kind of cool. But we like, particularly, I think with his talk that he had with X-23 out in the woods, like the forest, that gave me enough. And I feel like we get to see him go on a little bit rushed, maybe. And it's like, I'm kind of coming up with like qualms that I think a lot of people have, like as I'm talking about it. Because it probably was a little bit rushed, but it still worked for me in that I felt in the beginning, he was like, fuck this. Because one of my favorite scenes in the movie, which was in the very first, it's the beginning of the second trailer, is when Deadpool puts the gun to his head. He just like leans into it and he's like, fucking please kill me. He's like, I have no reason to be alive anymore. Like, and then by the end of the movie, he is the Wolverine. Like, he is the version of this of like, you are the X-Man. Like, you're not just one of the X-Men. You're the one who saved the fucking world. You did all, like, that's who he is at the end of this movie. And I think we get to see him kind of go on enough bumps and take enough not bump. I don't know what the word I was looking for there. But like go through enough shit that was earned to me by the end. That I wasn't like, okay, so now he's just a good guy. Like, no, that resonated with me. And I felt like it worked for me personally.
I think it was quite overly rushed, but Hugh Jackman's performance makes it feel earned because he was just so incredible. You know, like I wanted a little bit like, I've had this same qualm with every Marvel movie over the past like 5. It should have been a half hour longer. Like,
2:30 would have been great for this. Yeah.
This, like, 2 hours is long for a Deadpool movie, yes, but this was so fast paced that did not feel like a 2 hour runtime. That felt like an hour 30. I checked my phone at just like the very end, like I just did like a quick sneaky pull just to check the time because I wanted to know how much time was left in the movie, and I was like, damn, we have 5 minutes before credits. What? I thought there was going to be more until like the Marvel should have been a half hour longer. Thor: Love and Thunder should have been a half hour longer of just exclusively gore stuff.
Multiverse of Madness should have been a half hour longer. Like,
yeah,
so many of these movies would have been so much better served with 20 to 30 more minutes for sure.
yeah. And so that's what I felt with this one too. More on I feel like Wade's backstory was pretty good. I agreed with you because we've seen so much of that in the past, but more on the Wolverine stuff, like the facial expression when he leans into that gun, like you said, like that was just such incredible acting. And it feels earned still because Hugh Jackman just absolutely crushes it. But it would have been nicer to see. It just felt like he heel turned so quick and then would like bounce back and forth so fast with the characters, and you buy it because Hugh Jackman's so incredible. But I would have liked to get to see a little bit more with it. Let's talk about the villains. I'm going to skip a little bit ahead. We'll talk about the fights and the action and this stuff, which was incredible. It was really great. I thought when they got to group stuff, and I get it because some of the actors are a little bit older, which we'll get to, it was like a little bit too fast-paced, choppy camera back and forth for me in terms of action sequences, where something like Guardians 3 was just so cool because you feel like you could see each bit of what's happening all throughout the screen. The Deadpool stuff, I felt like I had to slow it down a little bit when it's the group stuff, but the Deadpool and Wolverine stuff was really fun and really cool fighting. Let's talk about the villains though. Paradox and Cassandra Nova, both of them I thought did such incredible jobs. Paradox with Matthew McFadden, he was fun, he was silly. The one thing, like, the acting was top tier. I would have liked a little bit more with his motivations though. I didn't just fully buy the like, I'm bored at work, so I want to speed it up. Like I wanted a little bit more behind his motivation. It was like, I think there was a very interesting conversation there to be had of like, in real life, our world is fucking burning, climate change, global warming, all the like threats of fascism all throughout the world popping up, things like this. There's an impending doom coming, much like this timeline, whether it's 100,000 years in the future, 1,000 years in the future, 100 years in the future. How do you balance enjoying the time you have with those you love versus biting the bullet and sucking it up and making changes and doing things to protect the world and saving the world, I think there's a very interesting conversation there, but it just sort of skipped past it. And again, I think that's in the runtime. And Cassandra Nova, same thing. I thought she was so fucking cool. Emma Corrin was awesome. Her powers looked incredible, but both the telekinesis and the telepathy with her sticking her hand through people's faces, so
that was
cool.
Creepy. Yeah.
Yeah. The motivations just kind of left me lacking a little bit. You want to turn the whole place into the void? Like she's the queen of the void. I get that at the first point. Like it's all good through the start. But then at the end, it's just like, I'm going to destroy the multiverse and turn it all into the void. Ha ha ha. Come on. You're better than that. You can think of a better master plan than that. I thought she too had a really cool aspect of like, either I win or you kill me. I'm good with both. That to me was like a real like Joker style, really cool part. But again, I just thought both of their motivations left a little bit lacking. But my goodness, the character performances were incredible.
Yeah, I actually completely agree with that because that was one of the things that I saw a lot. Like that was the most common complaint I saw going in was that the villains were a little thin. I saw some people being really, really harsh on them, and I think the performances are too good for me to say like these are bottom tier MCU villains. Like I think performance wise, these are up there in like the top 10. Just now, if you combine performance and character, I think they're probably somewhere in the middle. Just because I 100% agree that for both of them, like especially with Matthew McFadden with Agent Paradox, like it would have been cool to get to see even if it's like 45 seconds, like a flashback of his early days with the TVA, maybe Mobius walks by his like he's fucking like hands him like a stack of papers, and he's like, "This is why I'm here. Like I've been here for however long. You know, time works differently in the TVA, and all I'm doing is like filling out paperwork and do it like I want to." And then he comes back and he's like, "So then when they gave me my own branch, I was ready to go." Like something like that, where I'm like, "Okay, now I see why you're doing what you're doing." Whereas, like I agree with you too, and yeah, the Cassandra Nova. I don't know why I blanked on her name for a second there. Oh my gosh, she was so good. I will say, I kept thinking that whenever she was using her powers, and especially putting her hand in people's faces, I was like, it made me think of the budget joke that we're going to talk about later with a specific cameo. I was like, so much of the budget is going to her putting her hand in people's, like she had her hand in Matthew McFadden's face for like 10 minutes. And I'm like, I know there was somebody doing the like VFX or cutting of that. It's like, every day we work on this is like $1 million. You know that, right? Like this is costing so much money, but she was great. I did have a little bit of I'll say like a concern with her in the middle, because I was like, when they first show up to her and she just slams Wolverine under the ground and sends him fly, I was like, okay, like, well, how is anybody going to beat her then? Like, that's one thing that I hate when it's like for me, I won't go too much off a tangent here. It's like the Superman problem where I'm like, you put Lex Luthor in a movie against Superman. I'm like, and I get, you can get Lex Luthor to do things in turn, but I'm like, nobody's gonna kill. So that's why, and I guess we haven't had a good Superman adaptation, so it's like it's hard to like make him question his
My
humanity
Adventures
like
with
that.
Superman. Everybody, check it out.
That's yeah, okay, that's fair. I should say a good live action or like recent live action, rendition. I should say, but like that's
in
just
movies,
in general.
In movies, yeah,
right, exactly. I have like sometimes have a problem with like super uber powerful characters that I'm like, okay, if you just show me this person absolutely wiping the floor with going in, who I would have said is probably like the most powerful person in the movie, like Wolverine, or in that top 2 to 3. And now I'm like, she just slammed him under the ground and sent him like 500 yards with the swipe of a finger. And I'm like, who is going to get, she's not going to let anybody get near her. Like, and I guess I got the helmet stuff, like the Juggernaut helmet, that, that's fine. It worked, but I was still just kind of like, okay, those kinds of, it really is funny that I said I had no qualms, and as I'm talking about it, I'm like thinking of things that now don't work as well for me. But like there, as much as I loved her performance, and I agree with you too, that at the end I was like, oh, this is what we're like. I get wanting to turn the whole world into the void because you're the queen of the void, so then you'll be the queen of the world and the queen of everything. Like I get it, that makes sense. But it's like, did we really? You were just making fun of the multiverse stuff, and now we're doing like a multiverse smashing. Like that's like, you made fun of it, and then now we're doing it. So I'm like, I don't know. It's still like none of this in the moment. Like none of this stopped me. Like I wasn't watching that like, oh God, I wish they were doing this. Like I was just having such a good time, like first time watching it, that none of these things really crossed my mind, or they didn't bother me like at the time.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's like they kind of had to make a conscious decision with this villain choice of, if you want to make a satisfying power levels victory, you basically have to do one of 3 things. One, you get Deadpool to do a Endgame Portals thing where he brings in a bunch of heroes and some with telepathy and things like that can help overpower her. 2, you bring in a Charles, maybe 2 Charleses, and have them go toe to toe with her. Or 3, you basically have to make the decision that it's not going to be about overpowering her. It's about focusing on Deadpool and Wolverine. And that is what they did there, which left the villains' motivations leaving a little bit, but because they wanted to make sure the Deadpool and Wolverine stuff was perfect, and it was pretty perfect. The one part I forgot to bring up before with stakes, that like maybe I think, and like impact on the MCU, that maybe Feige could have been referring to a little bit, but I think this is something with, and that they tease a lot throughout this with the multiverse saga not going well. It's their own design. I don't think it's a problem with the multiverse. They introduce something in this movie that I think, makes sense in a contained movie. You take out the anchor point from a universe, and the universe starts to die. The problem is with all this multiverse stuff they're doing is some of these things overlap and kind of mean the same things, but the language they're using for a general fan is very confusing, because over the last few movies, they've introduced absolute points in What If. You can't change an absolute point. This person dies all the time. Well, they do the same thing in Across the Spider-Verse with canon events. Canon events, absolute points happen all the time, 2 different names. Now we have the anchor beings. If they remove an anchor, there's only one of these anchor beings in the, I guess there's only one of everybody in the universe. But if you remove this anchor being, the universe dies. Well, it's the same as a nexus being. So anchor beings and nexus beings are the same. They've just changed the names. And then finally, we have incursions still being this big looming thing. That's the problem. Incursions are going to destroy the multiverse. We see it at the end of Multiverse of Madness, and they don't even mention incursions in this one. This felt like the perfect movie to teach us more about incursions. And so it's just they're convoluting the idea of how the multiverse works. We know Secret Wars is coming, and it kind of seems like there's one of 8 different paths that they could take to get us there, but we don't know which one. It's not clear which one they're choosing, which is fine. I like mystery, but it seems kind of convoluted at this point. The other idea I had, sorry, that I forgot earlier, that they could have had someone to match up with Cassandra Nova when she starts messing up with the multiverses. You just bring Loki back in. He's sitting there as the Tree of Life going, hey, I'm building this now. Get out of here. You can't do this. This is mine. But again, they wanted to focus on Deadpool and Wolverine, and I get that. I understand that. I want to shout out our fellow agent Sydney, who does great work on socials, because she had a tweet that said, I can't remember. She's like, I will not elaborate further. I can't explain why, but Multiverse of Madness and Doctor Strange and Deadpool and Wolverine are siblings. They're siblings, and I really feel that. Like, they're different movies totally, but they feel like siblings in terms of like Multiverse of Madness and this movie both have like a creepy, distinct style with the hand face stuff and Wanda's body contortions and things like that, like a very distinct new style to the MCU that we got with some of that. And also Cameo Fest. And one that we teased earlier in the show, I've predicted first. We looked back in the footage in February, brought it up again in April. I brought it up on multiple pods since, but I got it right, and when you nail a theory, you got to celebrate. My dream for this movie, it's a stupid bit, but it's literally like my dream. Comic and like even cartoon Deadpool loves Captain America, idolizes Captain America, would never be Captain America because he's so different, but like respects and idolizes him. Almost fetishizes Captain America. I would love if throughout this movie, he's watching those screens and he's going like, when do I get to meet Captain America? Like, when do I get to meet Steve Rogers? Chris Evans was great. I love him in these movies. I want to meet Captain America so bad. And then at the end of the movie, he meets Chris Evans and he's like, Cap, it's finally you. And Chris Evans is like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then he flames on and he's the Human Torch. Like that.
I knew you were going there. I knew you were going there.
That is my dream for this movie. Dream come true. The only part we got wrong is that it happened in Act 1, not at the end of the movie, which I did not expect. But Chris Evans is back as the Human Torch, as Johnny Storm. I think it makes so much sense. He cameos in Free Guy. He has a great relationship with Feige, with Reynolds, with Sean Levy. I think it made so much sense for him to be back in this movie. The reason he didn't want to come back was he doesn't want to tarnish the legacy of Captain America and that ending. Well, he wasn't Captain America. He was Johnny Storm, and it was pretty great. What did you think when you saw Johnny there for the first time?
Oh my God. I was so stunned. And we talked about this a little bit before. I had no idea. Like, I remember that you had this theory, and I thought about you after the fact. But when he showed up, I was like, oh, it's Captain America. Like, I mean, you could tell it was Chris Evans. You could hear his voice. Like, we've seen and heard Chris Evans enough. I was like, oh, that's Chris Evans. I was like, they're going to do some wasteland, like even further, like than the Infinity War version, like the Nomad Cap. I was like, we're getting like ultra. No, he's going to have a big, huge beard, like all this kind of stuff. And then they showed him, and I was like, wow, he looks like really well groomed. That's not what that was like my first thought. I was like, that's not what I was expecting. I was expecting like super wasteland. And then as soon as he said the words, like I immediately thought of you. I was like, oh my God, TJ was exactly right. Like that's exactly what he said was going to happen. And it was Nirvana to get Chris Evans back, like as just in anything. Like I fucking love Chris Evans as Captain. Chris Evans as Captain America is like one of the best performances and just best like actor into character roles like ever of all time. Probably one of the best 5 to 10. But like to get him back like this felt like fun and not sacrificing anything. Like nobody gives a shit about those like that version of the. I will say when he popped up, I was like, are we gonna get like Johan Gruffett or Jessica out? Like, are we just gonna do the whole thing now? Or are we gonna get anybody else? And he mentions Reed. He says something like Reed said this and this, and it made me because I love Johan Gruffett. Like not even just as Reed Richards. Like I love him in everything that he's in. I feel like he's great. And I was so hoping that we were going to get to see him at least like a little bit. So it was nice that he mentioned him. I'll have to make do with, just a name drop, but no, man, getting to see Chris Evans back in Marvel in 2024, but as the Human Torch, that was great. There was no, I guess the only thing that I'll say is I was like a little, he looked just like I don't know if they filmed this around the same time that they filmed Ghosted. But like he looked exactly like the same haircut. He had the like light fuckboy beard. I was like, did you walk straight off the set of Ghosted and right onto the set of Dead? This is because like part of me afterwards, I was like, why didn't he have the shaved head and like all this other stuff? And I guess I get it. He's a little.
There's no razors in the void.
Right. He was remarkably well groomed for there to be no razors in the void. Very handsome man. But no, it was very, very cool to get to see Chris Evans back in any capacity, but especially as like a legacy character like the Human Torch. Very cool.
And I'm with you. I was hoping we'd get to see the full Fantastic Four. Those movies have such a special place in my heart, even though it's like you look back and they're like, yeah, they're very 2000s superhero movies,
oh, yeah.
But they're fun. They're fun. Especially the first one. Getting to see Happy Hogan at the beginning, I think was a fun tie-in to the MCU to kind of give us that connectivity. Getting all to see the different things in his office, proof Tony Stark has a heart, the Cap shield from Iron Man 2 and all these different things from Tony's Malibu place, like after it got blown up, that to see that they're now in Happy's office. I thought that was pretty cool. All the different X people was a lot of fun getting to see, oh my gosh, Pyro. Why I couldn't remember his name. Pyro back, Toad back, a new Juggernaut. We get that joke in there. I thought that was funny. A new Blob. Would have been cool since Ryan interviewed Owen Teague and Kevin Durant for Planet of the Apes. If that would have been our guy back in there for Juggernaut, but we got a different one and it was fun. Before when they're in the place and X-23 gets introduced for the first time, before she did, I was fully thinking like, oh, they said there's a fourth person here. We can't see them. Is Jessica Alba going to pop up as the Invisible Woman here? But then X-23 walked in and I was like, oh yeah, duh, that makes sense. She was incredible. I thought it was really funny how I was kind of speculating that the reason they put X-23 in the trailer a week ago wasn't because they'll try and get more people in the theaters. That's not getting anybody else in the theaters other than people who were already going.
Right.
So I speculated perhaps that was to get as many people as possible to watch Logan on Disney Plus before the movie and just try and like bump those numbers up. But Kevin Feige released the actual answer, and it was that Daphne Keane really badly wanted to go to he talked about this at SDCC. Daphne Keane really wanted to go to the premiere, and he was like, oh, well, we can't have you at the premiere because no one knows you're in the movie. And so they put her in a trailer so that she could go to the premiere.
Oh,
and so that's why X-23 was in
Love it, Daphne Keane.
Shadow, hello. Shadow's coming to say hello here if you're watching us on YouTube. Smash the like button if you are, but you can probably hear him regardless. I thought it would have been cool if that was a surprise, but I love getting her back. I would have liked to see more of her. It'll never happen because Logan is probably the second most popular Marvel character that exists. But it would be pretty cool if I think X-23 Daphne or Laura was Wolverine in the MCU going forward. I think that would be awesome. But no, we're getting Logan. We're getting a Logan because everybody loves a Logan. And so I would have loved to see a little bit more of her, whether like we saw how great she is with action in the Acolyte. I would have liked to see her fight a little bit more, but I thought she was great when she threw those glasses on. It was incredible. Elektra, Jennifer Garner, looking swole as Elektra, back with a hilarious, oh no, Daredevil died, I'm so sorry. Oh no, it's fine, alluding to the fact that they started dating on set of that movie, got married, and are now divorced. Funny little joke there for breaking the fourth wall. Gambit as Channing Tatum as Gambit, doing the heaviest Cajun Gambit accent you will have ever heard. He was hilarious. He was absolutely hilarious. I love the jokes that they gave there. I can't wait to watch that again with subtitles. We get Henry Cavill as Wolverine. We get the back. We get the back of Hulk and Blade. Everybody thinks Ryan Reynolds and Wesley Snipes hate each other with a passion. We get Blade in this movie.
I'll say the one that's so like I haven't seen the Daredevil or the movie. So, and I mean, Jennifer Garner was one of the worst kept secrets. Like everybody knew she was in this movie. Like when they first started filming this movie, one of the first that scene where they meet all those people was one of the first scenes they shot. Because I don't know if you remember, literally within a week after they started filming, that scene of them like walking and like with that van, like the Honda Odyssey, that was like one of the first set photos that got released. So that was very early on in filming, which obviously then they drive the van to the hideout to meet the people. So it's like, and that news came out very, very early. And I still, in the last year and a half since it did, had no desire to watch the Elektra or the Jennifer or the Daredevil movie. So I knew about that one, and I also haven't seen it, so I wasn't fired up. I was stunned to see Blade. And the joke, he was like, I'm the only, he's like, I'll always be the only Blade. I was like, oh man, that has not aged entirely well based on what is going on.
I think that's what, right yeah, right. It's like a shot. It's both a shot and also like it is supposed to land as like oh, you don't know, you're not the only Blade anymore. But actually, it's like well, maybe they're never gonna make that movie,
right? And it's funny because like when he said that line, it was probably a year and a half ago. So like, and even since then, that movie has been in such development hell that there was no way they would have known that this was that by the time this movie came out all these many months ago, that it would be looking even more like, oh, maybe we're not going to get a Blade movie because there's so much going on. But like, yeah, that was a shocker. I will say, and yeah, another thing Garrett and I were talking about, we were on the same page on this one. I hated Channing Tatum's game. I hated it. Really? I don't know if it was the accent, if it was the look. Like when he first popped up, I was like, "Oh, cool! They're doing the John Krasinski as Reed Richards thing. Yeah. They're doing the people. If he's wanted this, he's talked about it. Fans have wanted this. Fans have talked about it.
He was genuinely supposed to have a movie,
and it was actually really funny because Deadpool made the joke. He was like, "Were you, or did you just really want it and the studio never made it happen?" I like my theater busted out laughing when he said that, but it was something
all the things about like when he was like, my universe never actually knew me. Like so fun, so funny.
It's like, I don't know if it was the accent or the look, because like I like Channing Tatum. I'm a Channing Tatum fan. This is not me being like, oh, I hate Channing Tatum. That just did not. It was cool to get to see the powers. Like Gambit's got really, really cool powers, like the purple cards and shit. Like that's all, and you get to see it like R-rated. Like you get to see him literally like cut people open with cards. Yeah. Like that was really cool. But as for the performance and the accent was just and I know like Gambit has a very heavy New Orleans accent. He's got that drawl, but I don't think Channing Tatum did a great job bringing that out.
I think that was purposely very heavily parodied. Like I think they tried to make it extra aggressive, extra silly, because that's one of the interesting things about him of why he wanted to be Gambit so bad is like he hired a dialect coach to get the Cajun accent down like before securing the role. And so I do think there were shades of it where it sounded really good, but then it was like they threw in the jokes of like you can't understand him, so it would get like you couldn't understand him. But I think that was kind of like on purpose not being able to do that. I think he was just kind of amping it up there. It never made me want anything with Channing Tatum as Gambit going forward. I thought it was really fun, but I wouldn't want more of it. It did make me think he could have done a really good job when he was younger. I do think a younger Channing Tatum could have, like, without the kind of parody, like throwing it on. One of the reasons he wanted it as well is like his family is Cajun. He's like, he was born in Alabama and he wasn't like he doesn't have the natural accent, but like his ancestors are. So I think that would have been pretty cool if he got something in advance. I think he could have done a good job. But as like the jokey version itself was funny. The Cavill thing was the most unexpected. That was like, what the hell? Like, I couldn't believe that was happening.
Dude, that was the one that like people in my theater were like, oh, there was like the biggest collective gasp that I'd heard in the theater. That like, and well, I was like, he ain't short either, but fuck, he would do a really good job as Wolverine. Like I was, and I know he's also probably they're probably looking for somebody younger, somebody that can be Wolverine for 10 to 15 years. So I get it, but I was like, damn. And then I had heard a rumor a long time ago that Edward Norton's Hulk was going to be in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I had no idea. That wasn't one of those where I felt like it was spoiled because I was like, Edward Norton hates Marvel. Like he hates. If you ever heard him talk about it, he hates Marvel. And he feels like they fucked him. And to be honest, they kind of did. But he feels very fucked over by them. So I was like, surely he's not. And I've never seen him and Ryan Reynolds in a movie together. So I'm like, surely he's not coming back. But when Wolverine comes out in that yellow and brown, and then Wade makes the joke, he's like, the comic accurate yellow and brown suit. He's like, that's the one you fought Hulk in. And then we see like the side shot. I was like, are they about to give us like an Edward Norton Hulk like thing? But then they just don't. We don't see who it was. I mean, I'm to assume that was probably just Mark Ruffalo. Like if we had to say that was probably a Mark Ruffalo Hulk or whoever, like I don't. But those were the two, like the Hulk and the Cavill Wolverine. Oh, and I want to touch too on the Happy Hogan. I know we only got like 10 more minutes, but
yeah, I'm trying to keep us speedy here so that you can get out on time.
Oh, I know. Well, yeah, I'm gonna have to go anyway. But I know we don't have too much left. So we've been bouncing around a lot. But I just briefly want to say too at the beginning with the Happy Hogan stuff. It's funny to think about that actually happened like in the timeline before we even watched Infinity War. Like that was like pre-Infinity War because that meeting was in 2018 in like March. I think March 14th, 2018 is when that said. So even before Infinity War, like is when that fucking meeting happened, which is crazy to think. Like the MCU always does that timeline stuff, which is nuts. But they actually had me thinking. I was like, is he about to spin around in this chair and Robert Downey fucking Jr. is going to be sitting there? And I was actually questioning. And then he was like, he doesn't really do this kind of thing anymore. And he was like, meetings or cameos? I was like, we're fucking off. Like within the first like 5 minutes, I was like, we get all the stuff with the meeting and the cameos, or like the meeting and the rest of the family, like all that stuff. I was like, this is perfect. But yeah, all the cameos
I was expecting that to go like, who am I talking to right now? Is this an Avengers interview? Am I talking to Favreau, the producer, about getting a movie? Is this or are you Foggy Nelson? Like what is going on here? Like that's kind of because he's of course Foggy in the Ben Affleck Daredevil. Like I was expecting some kind of joke about that. Yeah, Matt, they have all of the CG renders of Hulk. Give us a little Hulk and Wolverine fight. I thought that was going to happen.
Right.
But even the tease was really cool. The short Wolverine was hilarious.
Yeah.
Like we talked about earlier, there's not a huge impact going forward to this of the MCU. So there's not a lot to theorize other than will we see Deadpool and Wolverine again? And the way they just kept making the jokes of we're going to keep Hugh around till he's 90. We're going to keep Hugh around till he's 90. That did very much make me think we are going to get Hugh Jackman returning in Secret Wars. It'll probably be this exact same Wolverine. And then they will do a new Wolverine, a new set of X-Men after that. But until Secret Wars, I kind of think we're going to be getting this guy again. Where would you rank it among your like very early, seen it once, thinking with your heart, not your brain, not critically, but just with your heart? Where does it fit in your MCU rankings, and what would you give it out of 10?
I think it's probably around the 5 slot. Like I don't think anything will ever top because my top 3 are always like Endgame will be 1. I think personally, is like in terms of like enjoyment, Endgame is one. In terms of what I think is the best Marvel movie, I think Infinity War is one. But if we're just going personal enjoyment, like Endgame is one, Infinity War is two, Civil War is three. Oh man, my winner. It's in that like see like, and then after that we get like those are my like 1A. That's the top tier. I think after that we get Deadpool and Wolverine, Winter Soldier, Iron Man 1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That's all that I can think of. Like, right, I think those four are like in it. So it depending on when you ask me or how I'm feeling on that particular day, I'd say it's in that 4 to 7 range for me. And that's like I don't expect it to be that high for everybody. Deadpool is my guy. Like that's my movie. So if somebody else says, yeah, it's like 15 for me, like, that's fine. Like I don't expect it to be that high for everybody, but it probably is around that 5 range, give or take 1 to 2 for me.
Yeah, I think I got it around like the 15 range for me. But like 15 to 9 like really shifts around often for me. Like I have it 9 is Shang-Chi, then Guardians of the Galaxy, then Civil War, then Iron Man, then Far From Home, then Homecoming, then Deadpool and Wolverine. But like sometimes Far From Home and Homecoming are top 10 for me. Like it's just like it's so tough to rank the top tier of MCU movies because they really,
you're a Spider-Man
really
guy,
so
so it's like
exactly.
People could hear that and be like, Far From Home over Deadpool, but it's like I love all the Spider-Man home movies, like all the MCU Spider-Man movies. But for the people that hear that and they're like, Far From Home and Homecoming over Deadpool, but like you are just like I said, I'm a Deadpool guy, you're a Spider-Man guy, so that like it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And so, final rating out of 10. What do you think? And then we'll get out of here.
If you asked me yesterday when I left the theater, I would have said 10. I would have been like, I just had the time of my life. If you ask me now, I'd probably say 9. And that by the time I watch it 3 or 4 times, that may go. I don't see it going lower than an 8. But right now I'm at a 9. We'll call it a 9 right now. What about you?
I think one of the things that brings it down just a touch is my own fault for this. Like I was based on all the reactions, I was kind of expecting, both of us are fans of the Midnight Boys and the Ringerverse. Shout out to Jomi and Charles, our former guests on the podcast here. But they do their rankings at a 12, on their midnight meter. And a 12 out of 12 is a perfect movie. It's Dark Knight. It's Infinity War. 11 is absolutely great, almost perfect, just not quite like a game changer, genre changer like those ones. And a 10 out of 10 is just like a 10 out of 12 is just like a really, really good movie. I was expecting this to be an 11 or 12 on that scale kind of thing from all the things I heard with the consequences for the MCU. But what it ended up being is just a really, really great Deadpool movie, a really, really wonderful Deadpool and Wolverine movie. And so I think as a fan, I got about an 8.5. As a critic, I got about a 7.5. So I'll say 8 out of 10 is my overall ranking for Deadpool and Wolverine. Overall, a massive success. I loved your specific reaction on Twitter. Follow the Agents of Fandom on Twitter, at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. I loved your specific your specific post on Twitter because so many people say things all the time like the MCU is saved, the MCU is back. It never fucking left. Some people didn't like Quantumania. Some people didn't like Love and Thunder. A few people didn't like Multiverse of Madness or the Marvels. But for the most part, it's on and popping. We're breaking records with this one. It's the shot of adrenaline the MCU needed because that's exactly what this movie is. It didn't save anything. It didn't bring anything back. But it is a pure shot of adrenaline and fun that is going to get people excited. Gets people excited to go to the theaters. And that's exactly what this movie is. And so really wanted to point that out because I thought that was just like an absolute perfect description of what this movie is. Deadpool and Wolverine now in theaters. Make sure you check it out. I don't even, if I'm going to be honest, I've been busy. We've both been so busy this week. You're covering San Diego Comic-Con for Collider. I'm a full-time producer at Roto Grinders this week. And so I genuinely don't know off the top of my head what we're going to be talking about next week, but we're going to have some fun. So make sure you tune in next week. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. On behalf of myself and Adam, we'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
Bye.